Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
Welcome to the Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Stephen D. Farrar II. Stephen, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Steven. I am a aspiring filmmaker from the Los Angeles Film School, innovator and creative writer who has published already two books on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon, Apple Books, pretty much all platforms. And I'm continuing my work in pursuing my dreams and goals pretty much.
Very cool. What are the books and what are they about?
So I have one book that already got a 5-star review, and like I already sold like about 50, no, over 100 copies in 2 months already. It's doing pretty well, not pretty well, but it's about Ava Montgomery. It's called Crimson Delirium. It's about Ava Montgomery, and she gets too deep into her character as a Hollywood actress and starts losing it pretty much.
Okay,
And
very
then
cool.
we got
Where
another
did
one
you
which is harder.
uh,
Oh, go ahead.
go? Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask where do you get the motivation? Where do you get the content? Where do you get the details? Where do they come from?
So what's amazing what's amazing that I can develop is I can write hours and hours of like content and not get writer's block. I just use my creative mind and just write, continue writing, and I can just go all night with writing, and I just use my 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 head and just put all puzzles together, and I just make one great story. I am actually working on a series called Rachel Evolution Beyond Bayside, and we have 40 members, 40 team members already developing a great TV series as well. And we're
So
hoping. Go ahead.
yeah, go. No, no, no. I'm interrupting. I'm just
No,
getting
no,
that
no.
flow going. So, what are you hoping to do with it?
The series.
Yes, absolutely.
We're hoping to pitch it to Netflix. That's our
Okay.
main goal, is to pitch it to Netflix.
Very cool.
And
That's
we,
the place to be, right?
yeah, it is. It has so many. Netflix is really like you can, if you pitch your movie or your series to Netflix, you have a bigger audience to go ahead and watch your series, and that's our main goal. If we don't get picked up by Netflix, we have other options. There's Prime, Amazon Prime, other options as well. The
Okay.
boys, actually, the boys. I believe the boys pitched it to Netflix. The boys, have you heard of the boys?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it. I,
Uh,
I would. I wouldn't imagine the pitch. It seems a lot of things seem on paper very abstract, and you're like, well, how's that going to work out? And then you see it, and you're like, oh, okay, I
yeah, and
got
then
it now.
Amazon Prime picked it up. I believe the boys pitched it to Netflix. I think I heard about that, but I think Amazon Prime picked it up, and it turned out to be a great series.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining. So, shall we get into it?
Yes, go ahead. Let's get into
All
it.
right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus comedian.
Okay.
So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person who tells any jokes. And many people would agree with me that you start as a comic and you evolve into a comedian. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I go to a lot of comedy shows and I see a lot of people who does comics, and they try to like they try their best to like become a comedian, and like Matt Rife and all them, they started off as a comic, they evolved into a comedian. So I agree on that as well. You just have to have the skills. You have to engage with the audience. That's pretty much what you have to do, is engage with the audience, and that's the whole point of being a comedian is engaging with the audience. Comics, I believe comics mostly go for like, I think jokes. I believe jokes and like stuff like that, and then they pursue later on as a career as a comedian. So I believe in that.
That's pretty much we're in line with that. So, first question is about the role of persona in comedy. So, how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self?
Um, you have to so that's the thing. You have to have a voice first. You have to have a voice in order to be a to be a character. Like you have to have character, you have to have a voice. If you don't have that, then you don't really align with comedy or stuff like that. The focus is engage with the audience, build your persona, get your voice out there, and develop that, and you can honestly you can have that trait. So that's pretty much that's how I see things.
Okay. So, would you say that authenticity matters or is illusion part of the magic?
Uh, that's a good one. So you have to as you have to know what you have to so you have to have persona. That's the correct one. You have to believe in what you're saying. You have to believe in what you're saying. You have to you have to believe you have to. So illusion, you can't pursue comedian without illusion. You can't. And that's the main focus is illusion. Because say for instance, I say a joke, which is I'm not really good at jokes, but say if I'm engaging with the audience, I say a joke, like uh what would happen if a man walked into a bar, blah 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 blah, right? And I don't believe that moment. Like I don't come up with that illusion, believe that illusion, and I don't get in with the illusion, right? And yeah, so I'm not going with the flow of the joke, pretty much. Um, so pretty much, yeah, pretty much you illusion is the main part of comedy, and I'm so into comedy as well. I watch a lot of comedies. I try to develop a comedy movie as well. Develop a whole concept, and it's all about illusion. It's all about imagination. It's all about that stuff, in jokes and stuff like that. So.
Absolutely. So, for punching up versus punching down, where do comics versus comedians stand on this? So, let me put it in a historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Hmm. And that's that. You want me to answer that question, right? Or is that a joke?
I mean, it's. I hope it's funny, but yeah, imagine going back in time and what that scenario could be. So, for example, is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
So that right there, that's a complicated a complicated joke that they have to understand. They have to believe in what's going on in that scenario. So say you just told me that, and I'm not. I had to think of that for a minute. So pretty much a lot of people are gonna think on the jokes. A lot of people are gonna think of for a minute. What's that joke? What's going on with that joke? And that's the whole part of like that's the whole part of the jokes is you have to understand it, and you have to understand the whole scenario. And I think that's honestly a tough one. I can't pretty much answer that one.
Okay, no problem. Well, let's go to the next one. Cultural translation of comedy. How do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Okay.
They're only going to get harder from here.
It does get harder. It does get harder. This is a very comprehensive joke right here. So, repeat that joke one more time.
Well, the question is, so how do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Bombing another. Okay. Um, I believe, I believe bombing another. So how does one? That's the thing. So how does one joke uh bomb in another country is pretty much the whole question, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the thing. If you're gonna go to another country, you're gonna say a joke. I believe I believe you have to go with their culture. Like I see a lot of people do like tease their culture or stuff like that, and I don't go that far, but you have to align with the culture. You have to align with like the country. You have to pretty much you have to you have to like feel with like their culture. So say if I make a joke, and I present the joke. I want them to feel what they're talking about. I want to talk about like their food or their cities, their past culture. If you line that with the joke, they're gonna make more. It's gonna make more sense to them. It's gonna make them laugh more because it's residing with their culture back when like the UK, back when all this stuff happened, when like the medieval stuff like that. They're gonna know more about that. So you have to ace it. You have to come up with a very good joke to ace with to pretty much ace with their to ace the whole concept pretty much. That's what I think.
Okay. So would you say that comics are more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
I won't I won't say comics are more universal. I would just say comics are more um theory the theory what's that word? What's
Theoretical?
yeah. I say
Okay.
they're more in that. Comedians are more I would say comedians are more universal. I would do the other way around because comedians have more grip on like I said before, they have more grip on the audience. So
Okay.
I feel like comedians are more universal, and then comics are more theoretical, pretty much.
Okay. So crowd work versus crafted work. If a comic riffs like influencers and a comedian performs like in reaction videos, where is the sweet spot?
If the so if the hmm um I'll say
Is
the
there,
sweet spot is
yeah,
go for it.
is there a sweet spot?
Nah, I mean say the question one more time so I could get a good glimpse of it.
Yeah, so the idea is that I'm arguing that the comic riffs more, and then the comedian is doing more crafted work, like memorized material. So if one evolves from one into the other, where is the sweet spot between those two different ways of working?
So the comic does riff. So the comic does riff more. That's true. I believe in that. Um, and then the comedians have more. The comedians have more of the sweet spot. That's what I think.
Okay,
They have more of the sweet spot because the comedians. I look at the comedians as more professionals. They are more professionals because they can put out a laugh. They can direct direct their jokes, direct their 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 laughs. They can direct the whole laughs into and make the whole the whole audience, like the whole universe, just like pretty much engage. You can engage with the whole universe. So I feel like the comedians have more of a sweet spot. That's what I think.
Okay. So, what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or a comedian gets heckled?
Comedian. So if the comic leans more into more of that's a good one. So that means that the comics will will get. I believe that's when the comics will turn into a comedian. I believe will transform into a comedian, and when the comedian is getting the heckle, um, wow, that's a good one. That's
That's
one.
an interesting idea that perhaps when the comic leans too much into crowd work, somehow they transform into a comedian, and
Yeah,
then if a comedian
yeah,
gets heckled, somehow they transform into a comic.
yeah. That's what I believe. Yeah, that's exactly what I believe. So
Okay.
that's what my theory is.
Well, I'm gonna test it. All right, next question, very important. Advertising and self-promotion. Who advertises themselves more, the comic or comedian? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
I believe that a comic advertises itself more.
How so?
Because they're throwing out jokes, so they're throwing out like jokes, and I feel like they're trying to engage with the crowd to transform into a comedian. So when they're advertising when they're throwing out their jokes, they're advertising themselves, trying to transform themselves into a comedian. That's what I think.
Okay. So is self promotion seen as selling out or is it necessary for survival?
Self promotion is more survival because promoting is all about getting yourself out there. So you're surviving. You're pretty much you're trying to survive this whole the whole steps, the whole stages, and it's going to be a long way to get yourself out there. 'Cause it's not that easy to get yourself out there. It's going to take steps and stages, and you're
Right.
surviving. You're not only that you're looking at another income that you're also picking up a job, a side job, and pursuing comic at the same time, and then all of a sudden you're building your way there. You're surviving. You're promoting yourself. You keep promoting yourself, and you. So I think it's believe 23% that promotion, self promoting will actually succeed. 23% because you're self-promoting and you're using skills that some people don't have to self-promote, and it's really hard to promote self-promote.
All right. So censorship and offense. Does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point like a magician?
Yes, I believe that because comic does comic does do that to to comics do that to. So say they throw a joke out there, right?
Hmm.
They're gonna it's more of a it's more of a defense. Like I believe. So think about it this way. Comedians what's it called? they self point. You said right, self point. What was the
Uh,
question?
censorship and offense.
Censorship and offense. Okay, so comedians have more censorship. Comics has more defense. I believe in that theory.
Okay.
Um, that's the theory I believe.
Okay. So who survives better in a cancel culture environment?
A cancer culture environment,
Cancel.
cancel culture.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So saying that, other words, pretty much who gets canceled, right?
Yep.
More like who gets canceled and who survives. I say
Which one?
comedy,
Okay.
comedy, comedian, comedian.
The comic, the comedian. Okay. So timing and delivery, is it a science or an art? Do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Um, yes and no. I feel like they both have they both have they have they both can succeed. They both can succeed, I believe. They both can succeed at the same time. It just depends where you go, and where you which direction you go in pretty much that. So yeah, I say yes and no.
Okay. All right. So laughter versus applause. Are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
Comics are chasing laughs. Comedians are yes, comics are chasing laughs, and then comedians are chasing. They're more chasing applause. That's what they're chasing.
Okay.
Comedians are more chasing applause. That's what I believe in.
Okay. So comedy as commentary. When does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
Um, philosopher and preacher. That's a good one.
Mhm.
Uh, so comedy is going. Sorry, comedian is going to be more of a preacher, and comics going to be more philosopher, I believe.
Okay.
And yeah, it's the whole it's just the whole idea of like the profession pretty much. I believe in that situation. Comedians are more preachers, and then yes, so yeah, that's what I think.
So is that good or does it dilute the humor?
Think about it this way. Comedians, they have to the comedians are more is comics are more of a tough point. They have their jokes have to like be so funny that they're going to have to make them laugh. So comedies comedians engage with the crowd. So they're they they got more of the humor and a more of a grip of their humor than the comics does.
Okay.
So
So comedy and vulnerability. If so, I argue that comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves. If you believe that is true, which one is braver?
I believe comedians are braver.
Okay.
If they're exposing themselves, then that's right there. That's bold a bold career to have, pretty much.
All right, final question about legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
Okay, so I'm going to go with comics. Comics are more they have more of a legacy. The reason why I say this is because think about it this way. They create jokes. They write jokes, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, who says those jokes? We say those jokes. So if we they write a joke, if they create a joke, and 10 years from now, 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future, they got a legacy joke that they created that people are now still saying. And that's my theory on that. Their
Okay.
jokes that are created, they're going to be, it's more of a legacy than comedians have at the end of the day. So,
Okay. I'll go with that. So, Stephen, where can everybody find you online?
so they can find me on I have an Instagram, I have a TikTok page, and they can find me on there. I'm very popular on LinkedIn, and I've been growing on LinkedIn. I've been growing for I've been like since January. I had only five connections, and I've been growing a lot on LinkedIn since now, from 200 connections. And they can find me on Amazon, um, uh, Apple Books. They can read my books. I already have so many good reviews on it. Just type in Stephen D. Farrar the second, and you'll find me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everybody, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
Okay, thank you so much.